Peace and greetings to the East, to all Freemasons everywhere throughout the universe. This is Illuminati Light, and I'm your host, Brother Majesty Montanez. So, it's late over here on the East Coast. Late. This episode right here is going to be about the degrees of Freemasonry, which degrees are legit and which degrees are illegitimate. So, before I begin, let me give a shout out to my brother, um, Brandon Lewis from Principal Masonry. I'm going to share something that he shared earlier on in social media. So, my brother Brandon Lewis, aka Brother B. Lou, he's a Principal Mason. So, what he did in recent times is part of the work of Freemasonry. He he donated blood to individuals in the human family who are in distress. So he donated some blood, basically to individuals suffering with cancer, individuals who are suffering amongst the human race. So I'm gonna show some pictures of the brother Belu, and he'll comment on the channel. That's my brother. Um, but it's good work, it's Masonic work, it's human work. So let me show some pictures of the brother. All right, that's a picture of the brother, donating some blood to somebody who's in distress. I mean, to people who's in distress in general, who are suffering from ailments. In this particular case, cancer. So that's one picture of the brother. And I love the brother. He's a good brother. He's a Prince Hall Mason. So that's one picture. Let me show you another picture real quick. That's a brother in the hospital. That's the brother B. Lou, Brandon Lewis in the hospital, giving a thumbs up sign, staying strong, dope. Um, Another picture. So that's the brother while he was undergoing the surgery, donating blood. He has blood in his hand. Donating. And he keeps a smile on his face, staying strong. Um, and then this is a picture of the brother. With a t-shirt. Celebrating. Donating blood to individuals who are in distress. Individuals of the human family who need blood, who gotta live, who gotta survive. Particularly individuals who have cancer. So, the brother donated blood and he stood strong while he's doing that, and that's official. That's part of the work of Freemasonry. That's it. Let me say that. So, shout out to the brother B. Lou, Brandon Lewis, peace. Good Masonic work. You're doing what you're supposed to do. That should get highlights throughout the world for doing good work. Unfortunately, and as far as the majority of the world is concerned, you have a lot of content going viral for gossiping and, you know, situations in the world that don't really mean much in terms of building civilization in the world. But the brother did that, and that's dope. And hope individuals on the channel will share that or share this episode. That's good work, that's square work. Now, the subject of this particular episode, Terrell Gosberry. Hey, bro, them cats be hating on Hawkins' channel. That's brother Terrell Gosberry. Peace and greetings to the East, brother. Yeah, not everybody hates on brother Tony Hawkins' channel. You just have a lot of cats who come on his channel who are infiltrators and they don't want to do the work of masonry. They come on a brother's channel because he's a peaceful brother, and they yeah, exactly. There's a few of them cats. They come on his channel and they try to cause confusion in the craft, and that's what they do. And the majority of them cats are sent by Prince. I noticed they're sent by Prince Hall Masons and just enemies to the work of Freemasonry, and they'll come on and they'll say whatever they want to say to cause confusion and pretend that they're the friends of Masonry. So it is what it is as far as that. So I said that in the beginning in regards to my brother B. Lou, Brandon Lewis. Peace, brother. That's a good work that you've done Masonically. And brother B. Lou is a Prince Hall Mason, but it's good as far as what he's done and what he continues to do. He's a true craftsman, a builder, and a work of building the temple of King Solomon, the work of Freemasonry. So now this episode overall is dealing with the degrees of Freemasonry. Yeah, salute to the brother. This episode is dealing with the work of Freemasonry. The next episode I'm going to do on this channel is going to be on a particular degree of the Scottish Rite. That's all I'm going to say right now. I'm going to do an episode on the Scottish Rite. It's not going to be live stream. I'm going to do the episode and just upload it. And we're going to go in. The channel is going to grow. I'm going to go in, do the episode, and it's going to be fire. But now in this episode, which is live stream, we're dealing with the degrees of Freemasonry. Which degrees of Freemasonry are official, which degrees are unofficial in Freemasonry. So hopefully, while I shoot this live stream, hopefully individuals will comment because that'll give me more content to keep going. So I'll read the comment stream as y'all comment, meaning the viewers. Other than that, I'll just speak my subject. But definitely comment, like, subscribe, donate to the channel, etc. But comment if you have any questions, and I'll answer your questions. So the degrees of Freemasonry. How many degrees are there in Freemasonry? In Freemasonry, there are only 3 degrees. That's it. The 3 degrees of Freemasonry are known as the blue degrees, which are the Enter the Apprentice degree, the Fellowcraft degree, and the Master Mason degree. Those are called the blue degrees in Freemasonry. There are no other degrees in Freemasonry. There are only 3 degrees. Now, you may have heard of add-on degrees or appendant degrees or side degrees. Those are the degrees of various Masonic appendant bodies, organizations, etc., such as the Scottish Rite, the York Rite, the Rite of Memphis Mizraim, the French Rite, and there are a bunch of other side degrees. But there are only 3 degrees in Freemasonry known as the blue degrees: the Enter the Apprentice degree, the Fellowcraft degree, the Master Mason degree. That's it. The side degrees are appendant degrees of the Scottish Rite. Joseph says there are 3 degrees and many appendant, but that's the confusion on gender as well, huh? I don't know, brother. Please elaborate upon that if you can. So there are 3 degrees in Freemasonry. That's it. And the reason for which there are only 3 degrees in Freemasonry is that the 3 degrees of Freemasonry allude to the Trinity principle in the ancient mysteries, particularly in regards to Hermetic philosophy or Hermetic science. In Hermetic science, we have a principle known as the principle of polarity, which teaches us that all of nature is one thing, but that nature is composed of opposites. Active energy, passive energy. And furthermore, that there is a balance point or a neutral point. Brother Joseph says there is the death, rebirth, and union, and then there are as many combinations as wanted. True. Brother Terrell Gosberry says the Holy Trinity. Yes. So the universe as a whole is a trinity. The universe is the all and all. The universe is God. According to science, there's a law known as the law of conservation of energy. And anybody can look this up on the internet. The law of conservation of energy teaches us that everything in nature is energy, and that energy is essentially eternal. Energy does not come from non-existence into existence. Everything is eternal. Energy simply transforms from one state to another state, but energy is eternal. Everything in existence is energy. So when you talk about God, in regards to religion, as brother Jonathan G, I've always been intrigued to the fact that there were only 2 degrees at one time in Masonic history. May you please elaborate? Oh, that's brother Jonathan G. That's brother Rama. Thanks for the donation, my brother, $5. I appreciate that. I'll say this, brother Rama. That's brother Jonathan G. According to my research of Masonic history and degrees, according to my research, I may be wrong, I may be right. I don't believe there were only 2 degrees of Freemasonry in medieval times. The Ancient Order of Free and Accepted Masons, which is the Masonic Order, the Masonic organization, Freemasonry as we practice it today. I don't believe that there were only 2 degrees. I don't, historically. We can study Masonic records and find evidence to what brother Jonathan G just stated, for sure. We can study the records of the Scottish Masonic lodges, which possess the oldest Masonic records, the Scottish lodges, without question. Those records speak of only 2 Masonic degrees, as the brother mentioned, the entered apprentice degree or the apprentice degree and the fellowcraft degree. However, if you study those records and rituals of Scottish Freemasonry, Scotland, you'll see that even in their fellowcraft degree, they make, let me give you a good reference so that you could look into it for yourself. Look up trying to think of the name of this manuscript in Scotland. I want to say it's the Register House manuscript. of the 1600s. It's from the late 1600s. And I'll post a link in the channel, if anything, so that any viewers of the episode can go and click on it and read the ritual manuscript. I want to say it's the Register House manuscript of the late 1600s in Scottish Masonry. You'll see that in the second degree, the Fellowcraft degree, there is mention made of the 5 points of fellowship, which in Masonry today, throughout the universe, is a principle of the Master Mason degree, the 5 points of fellowship. And I don't want to go I don't want to go too deeply into the 5 points of fellowship for purposes of my obligation, but yeah, a lot of the elements you'll see in the Master Mason degree today, Freemasonry, you'll see in the old Scottish records of Masonry. Let me say further that in Scottish Masonry in the 1600s and in the 1500s, you had, of course, you know, the apprentice degree, the fellowcraft degree, and then you had masters. Without question, you had individuals who were the masters of lodges, meaning the heads of Masonic lodges, and they were master masons, regardless of the fact. And then you have certain records in English Masonry, particularly in the records of the Grand Lodge of England, that would kind of lead you to believe that there were only 2 degrees of Freemasonry until the Grand Lodge of England started up their organization and created a 3rd degree. But I don't believe that. I just don't believe it for a number of reasons. In the Master Mason's degree today, we have the legend of Hiram Abiff. And when I study, let's say, William Shakespeare, who is a famous English poet and writer or playwright. He has the play known as The Tempest. The Tempest is a play by William Shakespeare, who was a Freemason. You're not going to find a Masonic certificate saying William Shakespeare was a Mason or any of that. But you can read his plays and find various landmarks of Freemasonry in his plays. I wish I had the lesson, one of the lessons from my Masonic Lodge that deal with William Shakespeare and his involvement with Freemasonry. I wish I had that in front of me, but I would have to go into a box in my house and start digging up that particular lesson. So I'm not going to be able to do it for you right now. But William Shakespeare wrote many plays. In a lot of his plays, he talks about Freemasonry indirectly. William Shakespeare lived in the 1600s. So in the 1600s, Derek Bennett says Memphis Mizraim 91 degrees. Probably restate that. Maybe most of the Memphis Mizraim rites have from 96 to 99 degrees. Most of them. But maybe I'm reading that wrong. So with William Shakespeare, he left a lot of the stuff that he wrote. Joseph says you may find that Shakespeare was hellfire at one point, but then no, they're not certain. Hold up. Let me click on this so that this way I could read. This way I could read everybody's messages. Sorry, y'all. Let me see. All right, Joseph says that you may find that Shakespeare was hellfire at one point, but then it's not a certainty, as if he were a mirage. as he would probably prefer as a creative spirit. That's a good point, Brother Joseph. Brother Derek Bennett says, my bad, I knew it was in the 90s. Derek Bennett says, Morris right, 360. Okay, so I read those comments. Okay, so Brother William Shakespeare, there's a lot of stuff he wrote in his plays that allude to Freemasonry. If you're a Freemason, and I wish, again, I had the particular lesson of Blue Majestic Masonry, because then I could go so much deeper into a lot of what William Shakespeare wrote. So I'm gonna try to go off of memory. But I do know that in The Tempest, for example, which is a Shakespearean play, the main character of that play is named Prospero. And I'm sure that Prospero, that name means something. I don't know what it means off top. I can guess what it means, but I'm sure it means something. The character Prospero in the play, he's introduced as being a man of good repute, and that alludes to the entered apprentice degree of Freemasonry, in which upon your entrance you have to be a man of good repute. Prospero is also said in The Tempest, which is again a Shakespearean play, to be a student of the seven liberal arts, and that's an allusion to, I'll get back to Brother Joseph in a second. Prospero was said to be a student of the seven liberal arts, which are grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And that's an allusion to the fellowcraft degree in Freemasonry. Every Freemason will know why that is. And also, Prospero in The Tempest is in the play. He's accosted by three ruffians who want to rob him for his books or his knowledge. And that's in the legend to the legend of Hiram Abiff in the third degree. And William Shakespeare wrote this in the 1600s, way before the alleged time in which the Master Mason's degree was supposed to have been created. So I would lean towards the opinion that the three degrees of Freemasonry are ancient: apprentice, fellowcraft, and master mason, and that the legend of Hiram Abiff was passed on through the craft of Freemasonry for a very long time. And I'm quite sure that even in the early 1700s, there are certain Masonic manuscripts that reference Hiram Abiff. I'm quite sure of that. I can't tell you off top, but I'm quite sure from my studies that Hiram Abiff and the legend of Hiram Abiff was in vogue within the craft of Freemasonry prior to the establishment of the Grand Lodge of England in the year 1717, or whenever they say it was established. But conventional history says it was established in 1717, the Grand Lodge of England. So let me read some of the comments. Give me a second, y'all. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. Brother Joseph says Francis Bacon, the alchemist, was frequently claimed to be Shakespeare, for example. I've heard that too. I won't confirm or deny that, but I'm familiar with that. He says also that many others, perhaps a collage of characters himself, could be, definitely. All right, so that's what we have so far as the comments. So let me try not to get mixed up. I have a book now that I received today. It's called the Masonic Quiz Book. Right? Interesting book. Without question. It's full of questions and answers, and it was by a mainstream Mason. It's very interesting. There's a lot of information in there, and I'm gonna share it with the viewers of the channel as I progress through it. I've been familiar with the book in prior years, but it's a good book. I'm gonna go through it. Some of the stuff in the book, the name of the book is a Masonic Quiz book. There's a certain chapter, for example, in here that deals with Prince Hall Masonry in particular. So there's a whole chapter. And some of the stuff in there just baffles me because it's very racist. In this book, a Masonic Quiz book, it's very racist. Now, I'm not saying the whole book is racist, but the chapter that deals with Prince Hall Masonry is very racist. You know, it talks about Negro Masonry. The book was published in, let me mention this, because I don't want to be lacking. The book was published in 1949. 1949. And you know, it's coming from a mainstream perspective, and it speaks down in a lot of ways about Black Masons and how, according to mainstream Masonry's position at that time, Black Masonry is fake. There are no real Black Masons and stuff like that. And if y'all want me to elaborate upon that, I'll go into the chapter. Even on this episode, if y'all want, I'll read it for you. That chapter, it's not a long chapter. Or otherwise, I'll email it to you if you want, if you like. But still, though, I got the book. It's a decent book. Otherwise, a Masonic Quiz book by William O. Peterson, right? Who's a mainstream Mason. Let me try to read some more comments. Sorry about that, y'all. So let me read the comments. Give me a second, y'all. Sorry, brother Derek, if I deleted one of your comments. I did that on accident. I didn't mean to do that. Okay. Oh yeah, the brother Joseph says Francis Bacon was an alchemist for sure. He wrote a book called The New Atlantis, which is heavily Masonic. You're not gonna find a Masonic certificate or anything like that stating that Brother Francis Bacon was a Mason, but you can read his work and clearly know that he was. That's all I could say. You have to know the landmarks of Freemasonry and read his work from that perspective. Okay. Brother Joseph says, it is Freemasonry. I think you're in the spirit of Freemasonry. Okay. Brother Terrell Gosberry says, LOL. Racist, of course. Okay. Brother Joseph says, cool book. We'll check it out. Brother Derek, he has another message. I'm not erasing your message. I'm not erasing your messages, Brother Derek. I don't know why the live stream is saying I've deleted your messages. I wouldn't do that. Brother Derek was timed out by Illuminati Light for 300 seconds. Nah, bro, that's like an error. Trust me. Alex Rogers says, I think he was a Templar. I don't know who you're referring to, but please elaborate. So, in Masonry, there are 3 degrees. Then you have add-on degrees. This is the subject of this episode. The degrees of Freemasonry. Oh, he's talking about Bacon. Francis Bacon. If Brother Francis Bacon was a Mason, this is deep. This is real Masonry. Study, read. I'll try to help the viewers in that direction. So you have a lot of people who study Masonry who just say anything. They'll say, you'll hear this a lot, that Freemasonry consists of 33 degrees. No, it doesn't. The Scottish Rite of Freemasonry consists of 33 degrees, and that's a side. Those degrees are side degrees of Freemasonry. And in my next episode, which will not be a live stream, is just going to be an episode that I'm going to upload. I'm going to deal with a degree of the Scottish Rite known as Master Architect. So I'm gonna upload that. I'm not gonna do it as a live stream episode, but I'm going to upload it for students of Freemasonry, and it's gonna be dope. Some of it is gonna deal with, claims that Brother Albert Pike, who was a Freemason, that he was a Luciferian or devil worshiper, and so on and so forth. But I'm gonna upload the episode. It's gonna be pretty cool. And in the episode, I'm pretty much going to give you the whole degree, Brother Terrell Gosberry. So, bro, what is the point of appending bodies? I'm gonna get into that now. So, the episode I'm going to upload is gonna give you the whole degree of Master Architect, the whole degree. And don't be offended if you're a part of any other Masonic organization, but with Blue Majestic Masons, we only formally practice the 3 degrees: apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. So for us, the side degrees are supplemental degrees. They are teachings that will help you to better understand Freemasonry, and they're I don't want to say entertaining in a bad way, but in a good way. They help you to further enlighten yourself on the Masonic path, and that's all. But in Blue Majestic Masonry, we don't have consistories of the Scottish Rite. We don't have chapters of the Royal Arch. We don't have supreme councils of the Scottish Rite. We don't have any of that. We only have grand lodges that are composed of master masons. But we do distribute the side degrees of masonry, such as those degrees of the Scottish Rite, the York Rite, the primitive Rite of Memphis Mizraim, the Swedish Rite, whatever type of Masonic side degrees you could think of, we make those lessons available to our master masons. But we don't claim those degrees. And Blue Majestic Masonry, the highest degree you can attain in Blue Majestic Masonry is that of a Master Mason. But we do make available to you the side degrees upon request, and we do study them. We just don't have organizations on the side, such as, like I said, the ancient accepted Scottish Rite, the York Rite, the primitive Rite of Memphis Mizraim, etc. Let me read some of the comments and then I'll continue on. Sorry, y'all. Okay. Okay. Brother Joseph says, I can say for sure my family was not allowed at the table, per se, of the powerful Templars, but they always had to translators stationed at the door as translators, archers, and defenders, or tilers with more responsibilities that relayed before Masons existed as a tradition. You'll have to elaborate upon that, Brother Joseph. Really, seriously elaborate more upon that. Brother Derek says, I don't know why it timed me or kicked me out at work. I was texting fast. It may be something I sent. Probably, bro. Brother Derek, I didn't trust me. We didn't do anything against what you said. Trust that. It confuses me. But so as Brother Terrell mentioned, or as he asked, the point of the add-on degrees, I'm gonna go deep. I'm gonna answer the brother. For real, for real. I'm gonna answer him because he's a Blue Majestic Mason. Okay. When Freemasonry, not Freemasonry, let's make a distinction. There's a difference between Freemasonry as a philosophy and the ancient order of free and accepted Masons, which is a universal Masonic organization. Freemasonry as a philosophy goes all the way back to ancient Egypt, to Africa as a philosophy. When the Dark Ages took place, the Dark Ages of European history, from the 500s AD to the 1500s AD, the initiates of the ancient mysteries had to go underground. They were being persecuted. So the pretty much the old ancient mystery schools were, I'm not going to say all of them were vanquished, but they took a heavy blow. No homo. They took a heavy blow from Christianity, the Christian priesthood. The Christian priesthood during the Dark Ages they set about to destroy the ancient mysteries. So a lot of the ancient mystery schools, most of them in fact, had to go underground. They had to hide their teachings. They had to hide themselves as initiates and pretty much convert to Christianity in order to survive and live. This is what happened with the Knights Templar, for example, which was a Christian holy order that was established in 1118 AD. They were initiates, but they had to, pass themselves off as being Christians in order to live. But they preserved the esoteric teachings of the ancient mysteries in their holy order. And when they were discovered by the authorities, meaning the king and the pope, they were arrested and persecuted, burned at the stake, and outlawed for what they were really teaching. So, anyway, so when the ancient order of free and accepted Masons, the Masonic fraternity as we know it today, when it was established during the Dark Ages to preserve the teachings of the ancient mysteries, the organizers or the leaders, the real leaders of the ancient order of free and accepted Masons, did not make available to all of the membership of ancient free and accepted Masons the true secrets of Freemasonry. They didn't make that knowledge available to everybody who was coming into the organization, because the main purpose of those who organized ancient free and accepted Masons during the Dark Ages was to preserve the ancient mysteries through the rituals and symbols of ancient free and accepted Masons. So not everybody who was let into the organization of ancient free and accepted Masons knew or were taught the secrets of Freemasonry. Most members were not taught that. They weren't. It was dangerous. If you want to know who started the ancient order of free and accepted Masons, ancient free and accepted Masons, the organization we practice today, I can tell you that we know in the Masonic organization who started it. We know it's not a secret to us. But I'll tell you now, the individual who created ancient free and accepted Masons, meaning the Masonic organization as we practice it today throughout the world. Not Freemasonry as a philosophy. Separate the two. The Masonic fraternity as we practice it today throughout the world was organized and created by past Grand Master William St. Clair, who was a Scottish nobleman. He created the order in the 1400s AD, which is during the Dark Ages. He created it. He was a Knights Templar. When he created the organization, in the time period in which he created our organization, The Knights Templar were already outlawed. They were outlawed in the year 1312 AD. If you're a Scottish Rite Mason of the 33rd degree, an Inspector General, you'll know that. The year 1312 is a symbol of the 33rd degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Um, Brother William St. Clair, he created the organization known as Ancient Free and Accepted Masons. And the main purpose of the organization when it was created was to preserve the ancient Egyptian mysteries in particular and the ancient mysteries in general. So he didn't let everybody know the secrets directly. Everybody received the same ritual. Everybody received the same symbols, but not everybody was initiated into the secret. And there was a reason. The reason is that the majority of mankind were unenlightened. They were not mentally fit to understand the mysteries. But Brother William St. Clair knew that his duty as an initiate, he knew that his duty was to preserve and perpetuate these ancient mystery teachings in hopes that the latter generations of humanity would be able to um, decipher what it is that Freemasonry has preserved and teach it. This is why mainstream Masonry today, by main, I'm not going to go into the whole spill of mainstream, the difference between mainstream Masonry and esoteric Masonry, etc. But if you're a student of Freemasonry in general, a true student, you'll know that in mainstream Masonry, which is social club Masonry, to this day, there is the tradition preserved in the Master Mason degree of mainstream Masonry that the future generations shall find the lost word, or that um, the true word of a Master Mason is lost, but that the future generations shall recover it. So I'll say that. And I don't want to veer off too much. Maybe I'll come back to it, but let me read some of the comments. Sorry, brothers, who are watching. Let me read a lot of what has been stated so far, and then I'll return. Let's see. Okay. Brother Joseph says it will be understood as the lunar oral tradition of Sumerian mystery schools that isn't passed on at all beyond experience now. Good point. I get what you're going, Brother Joseph. Brother Joseph further states, I respect the rights that don't separate male and female among the traditions. Thank you, my brother. And that's how Blue Majestic Masonry is. We have men and women in our lodges who are Freemasons. Brother Derek says, but yes, the 3 degrees are the only degrees. Mostly some of those higher degrees are money takers. I'm just saying, you can learn some things. True. Brother Joseph says he's using Turcopolis, Brocopoliers, etc. are today kept among the Templar tradition as guardians at the door, but they were once translators or even Christianized Muslims or translators of multiple religions. Okay. They were always among normal people, teaching them directly, losing little orally as lunar cults. See, if you will, the sun kept separate and considered separately enlightened, and the moon close but not considered separate. The calendars are different with the lunar calendar first. I could read into that, and I don't understand everything Brother Joseph is saying here, but simply because he's writing on a YouTube thread, and the YouTube thread doesn't allow you to say an indefinite number of words. Um, but definitely the lunar calendar precedes the solar calendar in human history. He also says the luminary is the oldest and no more powerful, okay, than the people themselves. The Illuminati is separated and segregated power. I don't know what you mean by that, Brother Joseph. Harry Alford says they still exist in all nations. Okay, Brother Terrell Gosberry says, you talking about your heartbeat, LOL. Okay, good. Good to go solo. I think that's what the name is. So you are familiar with the craft of Amen Ra. Of course. Freemasonry is a preservation, again, in particular of the ancient Egyptian mysteries. And the Blue Majestic Masonry, particularly, we don't pretend to preserve the ancient Egyptian mysteries. Everything you'll get from our lodges, as far as curriculum, is true ancient Egyptian mystery teachings. It's not like what you'll see, no disrespect to um, those organizations that push the primitive rite of Memphis Mizraim or ancient Egyptian masonry, but most of those organizations you'll see that claim to be ancient Egyptian masonry really don't teach you the mysteries of ancient Egypt. But in Blue Majestic Masonry, trust me, for sure, we preserve and teach the ancient Egyptian mysteries in great detail, for sure. Harry Alford says, because they have different nations of Illuminati as of now, brother. Okay. Okay, I'm reading Brother Joseph's comments. He has a lot of comments. Okay. Um, Good to go. Solo says okay because I knew Dr. Ben personally is why I asked. I was hearing recently that brother Dr. Ben was a Freemason. And I wouldn't doubt that. And definitely he's a good person to study from. You know what I mean? As and not just the black community, but amongst humanity. You know, study the brother. But I've been hearing a lot of lectures recently talking about Dr. Ben's affiliation with Freemasonry. And I wouldn't doubt it because most enlightened men know that masonry preserves the wisdom of humanity for sure. Okay, Brother Terrell Gosberry says we study the craft for real. Your heartbeat is that which is lost. Listen to it, laughing out loud. You'll have to elaborate upon that, brother TG. Good to go says I went to high school with Dr. Ben's son. Rest in peace. He was said to be a Shriner prior to his death. Okay. So continuing on with what I was saying. When Masonry originated, I don't want to go through everything I said. If you've just tuned in at this part of the episode, go back. Brother William St. Clair, who was a European, he started the ancient order of free and accepted Masons. And do not confuse that with Freemasonry as a philosophy. When you read the Holy Bible, mystically, you'll see references to symbolic Freemasonry, or Freemasonry rather. The Bible predates, the Holy Bible itself predates the organization of ancient free and accepted Masons. So that tells you that Masonic, that's one thing that would tell you that Masonic philosophy is ancient, old, very old. The writings of Ptahhotep of ancient Egypt contain Masonic philosophy. Freemasonry is so old. It's very old, very ancient. That's why our rituals tell us that Freemasonry is ancient. But here we're talking about the organization that we're a part of now, which is Ancient Free and Accepted Masons, AF and AM. That was started by Brother William St. Clair in Scotland during the building of Rosslyn Chapel in Rosslyn, Scotland. In that building, he left many symbols to preserve Masonic wisdom. Anyway, remember that William St. Clair started Ancient Free and Accepted Masons in the Dark Ages. So everybody who came into the organization could not be put on to the secrets directly. They couldn't. It was too dangerous, very dangerous. If you were known to be practicing these mysteries at that time, we're talking about the 1400s, when Ancient Free and Accepted Masons started, even in the 1500s. The oldest Masonic Lodge records, meaning we're referring to Ancient Free and Accepted Masons, date back to the year 1598 from Edinburgh Lodge, #1 of Scotland. Dates back to the year 1598. If you were known to be practicing these rites and mysteries we practice now in Ancient Free and Accepted Masonry, you will be arrested and persecuted by the church. That's a fact. So when William St. Clair started it, he couldn't let everybody know the real secrets. He couldn't. The whole object of the organization in the beginning was simply to preserve the landmarks, to preserve the symbolism and the rites and rituals of the ancient craft. And that's what he did, and that's what he succeeded in doing. So certain members knew the secrets, but most did not. Most did not. So when Ancient Free and Accepted Masons, the organization spread throughout the European nations, most of the members didn't know the true secrets because it wasn't intended that they should. It was simply intended that they should pass on the traditions and preserve them unknowingly until future generations who would be more enlightened would be able to see the light and the symbolism and resurrect the true and ancient craft, which is Freemasonry as a philosophy. So when the Enlightenment period of European history came about, and we're talking about the latter part of the 1600s and of course the early part of the 1700s. This is in secular history, this is known as the Enlightenment period of European history. Freemasons who really did understand the secrets and sublime wisdom of the craft, a lot of those Masons started to separate themselves from the social club lodges, the social club lodges are simply carriers and preservers of the rites and symbols of the ancient craft, but they do not understand the symbols and the rites. They are carriers of the flame, but not bearers of the light. So those Masons who did understand it, they started to separate themselves, and they were able to separate themselves because now, I'm not saying today, I mean now in terms of the Enlightenment period of European history, the late 1600s and the early 1700s. The church, meaning Christianity as a world power, started to lose its secular power. There were revolutions sparked against the Catholic Church and even the Protestant Church. So government started to become more secular. And you'll see that with the United States of America when it started. If you study world history, you'll know that when the United States of America was organized, there was no Christian government here. This government is secular. But if you're in the United States, which most viewers are, you'll know that it's maybe confusing to a lot of people, but we have a federal government, which is basically supposed to be the government that oversees the state governments, or keeps union between the state governments. So you have the federal government and then you have the state government. So like, let's say in the United States of America, I'm in New York State now. We have New York State, which is a government in and of itself. New York State, we have a governor. Every city has a mayor. We have a whole government structure in New York State alone. But then New York State as a government is subordinate to the federal government, meaning the United States government as a whole. So a lot of things you'll see in terms of the laws in New York State and the New York State government will differ from what you would see in Connecticut, the state government, or New Jersey, the state government, or Pennsylvania, the state government, or Illinois, the state government, or Texas, the state government, or Vermont, the state government, or Rhode Island, the state government, or California, the state government. But then we have a federal government that's supposed to try to keep peace amongst the different states and have a general set of bylaws or rules that every other state will be subordinate to. So it's deep like that. But anyway, Masonry's plan and design is to preserve the ancient mysteries. That's what Masonry is about. So once this Enlightenment period, quote unquote, occurred in world history, it allowed for individuals to be able to more freely practice freedom of thought. It's like in America when this government was established, and it was established through Rosicrucian principles and Masonic principles. This is why if you're in America, you'll notice you could publish a magazine today that says, you could publish a magazine and say in the first issue of your magazine that Christianity is a fucking fraud. You could say that and publish a magazine, and nobody's gonna come up and arrest you for that. You're not gonna be arrested for it or put in jail. You may have beef coming from Christian citizens in the country who don't like what you said in your magazine. They may try to attack you physically or discredit you in their publications, but the government will not come and arrest you for that. I'm not saying that the government doesn't do underhanded shit to people who try to overthrow the United States government. Of course, the United States government organizes assassinations and shit like that against people who they feel are a threat to overthrowing their government. As black people, we know that in general, but that's neither here nor there. We could talk about that in another episode or something like that. But as far as the general rules of the country, when these type of governments or states such as the United States of America were organized, the true Freemasons were able to start teaching what they wanted to teach more openly. So they started separating from the social club lodges. And this is why today you have various esoteric Masonic lodges all throughout the world, not just in America. They started to separate, like, nah, I'm good. I'm out of mainstream Masonry now because I know where that comes from. I know what it stands for. I know what it represents. They're just carriers of the flame, but not bearers of the light. So we have enough illuminated or enlightened Masons to separate from them and start our own lodges and our own federations. But anyway, let me not get too carried away. Let me read some of the comments of some of the brethren that have commented. Sorry about that, Shaf. I went too far out. All right. There's a lot of comments here. Okay, okay. Okay, boom. All right. Harry Alfred says because they have different nations of Illuminati as of now, brother. Brother Joseph says solar Freemasonry or solar Ophites are old, but not as old, perhaps worshipping serpents and. Oops, I lost that part of me. Okay, okay. All right, there's some good comments here, man. Pardon me. So I don't know how certain messages are being deleted. I think I'm not for nothing, y'all. Pardon me if anything. I kind of think probably I have a hacker on my channel erasing certain comments unless y'all are erasing your own comments. All right, cool. All right, brother Terrell Gosberry says you talking about your heartbeat. LOL. Good to go says so. You are familiar with the craft of Amun Ra. I mentioned that already, of course. Let's go down. Good to go says I knew Dr. Ben personally is why I asked. That's good, brother. Good to go. Hey, come on the channel if anything, or request to come on the channel. We could talk about Dr. Ben because that would be a very good subject for sure. Brother Terrell Gosberry says we study the craft for real. Your heartbeat is that which is lost. Listen to it. LOL. You'll have to elaborate upon that, brother CG, as to how our heartbeat is lost and why we would have to listen to it and what that means esoterically. I don't doubt what you're saying, of course, you're my brother, but we would. I'm quite sure that has an esoteric meaning because literally it wouldn't hold much significance. So that's cool. Though I appreciate that comment. Um, okay, we got that. Your heartbeat makes the sound of the ineffable. Okay. Brother Derek says, I have studied some of Dr. Ben's work. It's in-depth Egyptian masonry, also as Islam. Brother TG says, masonry is very old, no doubt. Brother Brooklyn Locke says, Dr. Ben was initiated into the craft of Amun Ra, also Prince Hall. Professor James Small, also a Prince Hall Mason. Harry Alfred says, so what do you think about different presidents being Masons in this lifetime of ours? Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Brother Derek says, some people, some people still can't go too deep. They'll lose their minds in some of the knowledge and things we study. You will have to know how to distinguish the truths and allegories and break things down. Wildlife the One says, greetings, brother and sisters of the Order of the Eastern Star. And to Wildlife the One, we don't really have Eastern, we may have Eastern Stars who listen to our channel, but this is a co-Masonic channel for the most part. So we have brother Freemasons and sister Freemasons, men and women who are Freemasons. So we don't really have a need. No disrespect to the Order of the Eastern Star, but we have no need for the existence of the Order of the Eastern Star among us. Brother Terrell Gosberry says, Brother Smalls broke it down clearly, the connection between African mysteries and Masonry. Brother Terrell Gosberry, if you can, post in the, you could do it in the comment section. You don't have to do it on the live chat, but post the link in regards to Professor Smalls. Post the link if you can on this episode and explain what the link is, of course, you know. Brooklyn Locke says, indeed, he did. Okay. All right, so that's the end so far of where we left off on the live stream. Somebody mentioned that the presidents of the United States of America. You had a lot of presidents, somewhere between 10 and 20. I could give you the exact number and establish secular history, but I'm more mature in masonry and that. I know enough to know that when you read books, you have to go to the source of your information and read it. A lot of people are lazy, so they'll read a book, and let's say with your mainstream, I don't mean mainstream Masonic, but your mainstream scholarly books today, they'll tell you that about 14 or so United States presidents have been Masons. And you may read the book, and because somebody has a stamp of authority on it, you just jack it like, I know it. You don't know shit. Unless you have done the research yourself, you don't know shit. Pardon my French. You don't know nothing. Unless you've done the knowledge for yourself, you don't know nothing. That's it. So a lot of cats, man, like me right now, I'm in my early 30s. I know a lot, but man, I don't know, man, the amount of knowledge or light in the universe that's available, man. Bro, I'll be lucky if I know fucking 1% of the wisdom in the universe. Personally, I'd be fucking lucky, man. If I'd be lucky if I know even 1% of the wisdom in the universe. I doubt it. I strongly doubt if I fucking know even 1% of the knowledge and wisdom in our vast universe. I doubt it. I doubt it, man. I strongly doubt it. Um, so we have to be rational and realistic about our path in search of light. So with the presidents, um, there could be more. There could be more. It's like Thomas Jefferson. A lot of so-called scholars today say, oh, that there's no Masonic certificate or no Masonic diploma or records, and lodges saying that, he was a Mason, but maybe he was, man. I'm the type of individual that I'll read your books, or I will read your works. It's like when I read, for example, like we have the Master Key System correspondence courses on this channel, right? We have the Master Key System correspondence courses, 24 lessons. We have the original aspects of the lessons, and then we have supplemental information or supplemental keys of wisdom that we impart upon the subscribers. Now, the brother who originally put together the Master Key System, I'm not going to say his name right now, but the brother who originally organized the lessons, when I first read the lessons, just by me reading the lessons, the language, I was like, pretty sure he's a Mason. I didn't need to see a certificate or a diploma or anything. When I first took the course myself, I'm like, this is Masonic. He has to be a Mason. Then when I did my research, sure enough, the brother who originally put together the Master Key System was a Mason. But I knew from the language. This is why I tell you, like, when you study William Shakespeare, mainstream Masonic scholars, I don't even want to put all mainstream Masonic scholars in a box because that would be wrong. But I'm saying the majority of the cats whose information you'll read who claim to be Masonic scholars will tell you something like William Shakespeare wasn't a Mason because they don't have records of it, or they don't have, certificates with his name on it and all of that. Bro, come on, man. You don't have all the fucking information. You don't have it. You have to look at what people say. So meaning in their teachings. So when I read William Shakespeare, to me, it's like, nah, I'm not reaching or none of that. Too much of what he says is Masonic in his plays. That's why I mentioned The Tempest earlier in this episode. And there are other plays, man, with this William Shakespeare. He has too much symbolic language in there that reflects Masonic ritual and custom that I have to say, like, listen, man, he was Mason, and he's alluding to or hinting at the royal art or the Masonic craft. To me, it's beyond doubt. So I don't need somebody to show me a certificate or a diploma telling me William Shakespeare was a Mason or wasn't. I could read his work and know. Um, so yeah, so that's how deep it is when you're dealing with Freemasonry. Um, Same thing with like Dr. Ben. I could hear those lectures and I wouldn't doubt it. Or I could hear people saying he was a Mason and I wouldn't doubt it. Um, so yeah, this is why we have esoteric Masonry and exoteric Masonry. All right, let me see. Let me read some more comments real quick. Okay. Masons have had the map of the world before it was the world, and technically came from France before it was France, building things all over, but it was connected and they weren't dumb, nor are today. Brother Derek says that's so true. Some of them were just made Masons. I've seen where a person can have a power of wealth and the bam, I'm gonna make you a Mason. Okay. He has a play in King James has a play in writing. King King James Bible, Shakespearean terms, increasingly is proven science. So yeah, so anyway, damn, I remember the original subject. You see what the power's looking like. All right, so before I sign off, Professor James Smalls or Brother Terrell Gosberry retracted his message, or you could say your message again if you made a typo. So the original point of this episode, the so-called add-on degrees and all of that of the Scottish Rite, the York Rite, the French Rite, so on and so forth, those are not official Masonic degrees. But that's also relative. As a Blue Majestic Mason, we work the 3 degrees of Masonry from the perspective of Hermetic philosophy. We're different from mainstream Masonry or social club Masonry, but we only have officially 3 degrees, which simply reflect the fact that nature is 3, or nature is the Trinity, Blue Majestic Masons. We do again study the add-on degrees or side degrees, those of the Scottish Rite, those of the York Rite, the French Rite, the Scandinavian Rite, so on and on and on and on. We have every degree of Masonry you could think about. Blue Majestic Masons, but we study those things as a side endeavor. But we don't claim them officially. We don't set up chapters. We don't set up consistories. We don't set up supreme councils. Yeah, bro, I don't know how to put the post up. I'm young in this, bro, TG says. Cool. Um, However, from a universal Masonic perspective, you do have certain Masonic organizations. Expand your mind. Don't just read one book and believe what somebody says because the book is published. Anybody could publish a book in America. Anybody can have 10, 20 people make a consensus with them and agree with what they're saying. That doesn't establish truth. Brooklyn Locks, nothing to doubt. Um, let me read the comment. Sorry, bro. Uh, or he retracted the statement. Anyway, Brooklyn Locks, if you want to say what you said again, please put it back up. It seemed to me that, well, what I was informed of on the channel was that you retracted your statement. But if you want to say it again, please say it again, and I'll read it to the viewers. Um, anyway, so from a universal Masonic perspective, you have certain Masonic organizations um, who do not work under the Blue Lodge system. Like Blue Majestic Masons, we work under a Blue Lodge system, meaning the 3 degrees of Mason, the 3 universal degrees, Enter the Apprentice, Fellowcraft, Master Masons. We have Grand Lodges and we have daughter lodges of the Grand Lodges. That's how we work. However, we're in tuned enough to know that throughout the world, you have other Masonic organizations who may work a particular Masonic rite, meaning a Masonic system of degrees that go beyond the blue degrees. Enter the Apprentice, Fellowcraft, Master Mason. For example, the Scottish Rite. The Scottish Rite consists of 30 3 degrees. All right, this is confusing to a lot of non-Masons. And Blue Majestic Masonry is so simple, man. There's not a lot of confusion because we don't play with a lot of semantics. But okay, in the Scottish Rite, you have 33 degrees. 32 of those 33 degrees are open to everyone who wants to ascend up the ladder. The 33rd degree is restricted to an elite few who have to be invited into the 33rd degree. But that doesn't make the members of the lesser degrees less of a man or anything like that. The 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite, which I possess, all Blue Majestic Masons, let me not say all Blue Majestic Masons, I'll be leading you astray. But most Blue Majestic Masons who are Master Masons, most have the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite. We just don't claim it because we're Blue Majestic Masons. The 3rd degree is the highest degree of Masonry for us. But we do have the 33rd degree. I have the 33rd degree, but you will never see me come out and say I'm a 33rd degree Mason, Inspector General. Never, at all. But I do possess a degree. I possess it for sure. And most Master Masons who are Blue Majestic Masons have the degree. Brooklyn Locke says, seems like the chat is automatically deleting people's messages there. And that might be YouTube, because definitely, brother, I'm not doing that at all. And I wouldn't. Joseph, I'm drunk, but I'm drunk, but I'm pretty sure the French Masons were first teaching the Masons from the French Templars, so on and so forth. Now, the French Masons are definitely in general more enlightened than most people you would see in America saying they're Masons. I'll tell you that for sure. And I'm not French. I'm just telling you the fact. And get this graffiti. All right. So, uh, so certain Masonic bodies throughout the world, forget about mainstream Masonry, forget about all of that other stuff on Masonic organizations in a particular sense. You have certain Masonic organizations whom work the Scottish Rite purely. Now, let's say you're a member of a Masonic organization. We ain't talking about the mainstream, right? The brother says graffiti has been and remains important. Yeah, it is. Why not? It's promotion. So you have Masonic organizations throughout the world to this day that work the Scottish Rite. I'll give you an example. Let's say Universal Co-Masonry. Universal Co-Masonry is a co-Masonic organization founded in the United States of America. right? It's pretty much international nowadays. It's a co-Masonic organization, meaning it has men who are Masons as members and women who are Masons as members. Um, and the organization is a Scottish Rite organization. What does that mean? That means that that Masonic organization works the 33-degree system of the Scottish Rite. The head of that organization is a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason, a supreme, excuse me, a Grand Commander. Let me not say Supreme Grand Commander, a Grand Commander, Inspector General. That's how they work. So in their organization, to them, Freemasonry has 33 degrees. For them, because they're a Scottish Rite organization. So if you're a part of that organization, Freemasonry for you will consist of 33 degrees. But outside of that, Freemasonry as a whole body throughout the world only has 3 degrees, 3 official degrees. That's it, and everybody knows that. And that's why certain blue Masons, I'm not saying blue majestic Masons in particular, but this is why certain blue Masons, by blue Masons, I mean Freemasons. Every Freemason is a blue Mason. You have certain Freemasons throughout Masonic history that have went heavy, man, to discredit the Scottish Rite or the York Rite and the primitive rite of Memphis Mizraim, because they felt that, a lot of these appendant bodies and add-on degrees and side degrees try to mislead the general body of Freemasons to make the general body of Freemasons, which are blue Masons, to make them believe erroneously. Derek Bennett says, where can one get those books? Which books, Brother Bennett? Ask me the question again, like which books, and I'll let you know. So a lot of these individuals have done that to you know, try to mislead the general body of Freemasons into thinking there are actually higher degrees. And really there aren't, man. There are only 3 degrees in Freemasonry. The blue degrees: apprentice, fellow craft, master mason. Or entered apprentice mason, fellow craft mason, master mason. So that's that. But again, depending on your particular Masonic organization, you may be a part of a Scottish Rite organization. Like in America, you have Scottish Rite organizations that are purely Scottish Rite. And those organizations wouldn't be considered mainstream Masonry, but they're still Masonic in their own way, but they're purely Scottish Rite. And then you have certain Masonic organizations in America and throughout the world that are purely primitive rite of Memphis Mizraim, going up to 97 degrees. Some of them go up to 96 degrees. Some of them go up to 99 degrees. It all depends. And usually a lot of Scottish Rite Masons, usually, not saying all the time, usually a lot of Scottish Rite bodies will be enemies of these Memphis Mizraim bodies or organizations, because if you're a member of the primitive rite of Memphis Mizraim, you'll see that usually the first 33 of the 96 or higher degrees of Memphis Mizraim are the Scottish Rite degrees. So a lot of Scottish Rite Masons and Scottish Rite bodies felt that the primitive rite of Memphis Mizraim in general were trying to usurp or pretty much fade out their organization. Like, yo, how are your first 33 degrees, our 33 degrees, and then you're trying to go up higher than 33? So you're trying to eliminate our organizations, meaning the Scottish Rite organizations felt this way about the primitive rite of Memphis Mizraim organizations. And this is why in mainstream Masonry today in America, you'll see that the primitive rite of Memphis Mizram is typically outlawed or banned by the mainstream Masonic Grand Lodges, because the mainstream Masonic Grand Lodges typically will align themselves with the so-called mainstream ancient and accepted Scottish rite bodies. So there's a lot of politics there. There's a lot of politics with that, but ultimately, like I said, the purpose of this video lecture is to tell you that universally speaking, Masonry only consists of 3 degrees: Entered Apprentice, Fellowcraft, Master Mason. Universally, that's it. Another thing I'll mention, and I don't mean to offend individuals who may be a part of the group I'm going to mention, but you have another group operating in America that's called the Moorish Rite. And I vibed with some of these cats years ago, when they were first starting off. And I'm like, okay, it seems like a decent concept. Guy, I know he's also right at Memphis Mizram. I'll post his name. He gave a lot of good reading material also. Okay. And these cats, in the beginning, I'm like, all right, they seem all right. But then I started vibing with them and seeing that they don't work the blue degrees, right? They don't work the blue degrees of Freemasonry, Entered Apprentice, Fellowcraft, Master Mason, the universal degrees. And from that point, I had to, being a grand officer in my Grand Lodge, I had to put the word out that organization is not Masonic. And I don't want to do that to be oppressive or anything like that. But the Moorish, the so-called Moorish, right? So-called, which was a good idea, in essence, is not a Masonic body. They don't work the Entered Apprentice degree, the Fellowcraft, or the Master Mason degree. And with the degrees that they do work, those degrees are more aimed towards, most Scottish lodges have 4 degrees in the craft lodge, the 4th degree. That was interesting. Damn, let me let me read some of this. Sorry, yeah. I see Johnson, thank you. All right, most Scottish lodges, this from Brooklyn Locks, most Scottish lodges, not Scottish, right, have 4 degrees in the craft lodge, the 4th being a Mark Master degree. And English lodges, the Mark Master is its own lodge. Brooklyn Locks might be right. I don't doubt you, brother, at all. I'm very familiar with Scottish Freemasonry in Scotland. I can't say that most lodges operate like that. Yeah, but you might be right. Maybe most lodges do work like that. In Scotland, maybe most do. I know all don't. And what he says with England, true. Good to go. Solo says you're right about the politics. So-called mainstream didn't want to acknowledge any Mason outside of themselves for a long time. That's a fact. Good to go. Solo. So like I was just saying with the so-called Moorish, right? They have their little degrees that they practice, but those degrees they practice and rituals, when you talk to these cats, in their mind, they're dogmatic. They're dogmatic, basically. They pretty much spawn from the Moorish Science Temple of America, pretty much their membership, at least the founding members of their organization. The Moorish Science Temple of America, for a Freemason, you can consider that an exoteric religious body. Consider it that. It's not, nothing of which they teach is independent of their religion. Nothing. So these cats, they're pretty much Moorish Science Temple of America members. And the Moorish Science Temple of America was founded by Noble Drew Ali, who was a Mason. He wasn't a mainstream Mason and he wasn't a Prince Hall Mason. but he was a Mason, and he started up a religious movement called the Moorish Science Temple of America that was pretty much meant to uplift humanity. Noble Drew Ali knew better. He was a Mason, but he formed an organization with an Islamic type of undertone, not undertone, overtone, an Islamic overtone, to try to help improve the black community. But as information became more vast, especially in the age of information nowadays, is everybody started to realize like, okay, his Quran, which was the Quran Circle 7, was plagiarized from the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ by Levi Dowling. Uh, a lot of Noble Drew Ali's writings were plagiarized. That's just a fact. That doesn't mean he wasn't bright. He was bright, but he did what he did at that time. We're talking about the 1920s. So you had a lot of his followers who, because Noble Drew Ali was a Mason and incorporated Masonic symbols into his movement, they took it upon themselves to feel that they could do whatever they want to do in Freemasonry. Now, in the Moorish Science Temple of America, nah, that's an exoteric religious body. Masonry is Masonry. So you had cats who started up the Moorish Rite, so-called Moorish Rite of Freemasonry. And then I started vibing with some of the cats who claim to be that. And then I started seeing like, nah, these cats, for the most part, their body is not enlightened. Even the higher members, they're not. What they try to do is they try to promote Moorish science, temple dogma. That's what Moorish Rite Masonry exists for. It's to promote Moorish science temple dogma. It's not to teach you what real Masonry teaches you, which is that you are God, and you have to realize that inside of yourself. So the Moorish Rite wasn't organized for that. The Moorish Rite is basically a fake. I'm keeping it real, no disrespect to nobody who's affiliated with it, whom I might know, but the Moorish Rite is not a real Masonic organization at all. It's not. They're not. They have weird doctrines that have nothing to do with free thinking or enlightenment. Nothing. Even if you ask them, like, who is Hiram Abiff, they'll go all around the world with you. But real Masonry teaches you the simple fact that Hiram Abiff, Grandmaster Hiram Abiff, is yourself, you. Hiram Abiff is a symbolic character. Hiram Abiff is you. That's it. Hiram Abiff corresponds to Jesus Christ in the Judeo-Christian tradition, and Jesus Christ symbolizes you. Jesus Christ is not a real person. And in the Egyptian tradition, Hiram Abiff corresponds to the widow's son, which is the son of the goddess Isis, Horus. And the god Horus in ancient Egyptian symbology symbolizes you. That's what true Freemasonry teaches. So, like, the Moorish Rite, so-called, fade them. They not real Masons at all. Some of them got mad at me. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, come meet up with us. And I gotta meet up with y'all, man. Y'all, y'all can see us, Blue Majestic Masons, wherever, man. Like, you kidding me, bro? Like, y'all not gonna represent Masonry around, not physically around us. And we know where they be at. So, and that's another thing I'll say to true Freemasons. Don't be publishing your activities like me, like where you at, where you go, where you normally meet. Don't do that, man. This is why the true Masons from ancient times up to this time didn't promote where they are at any given time. Because you got enemies, man. You think you don't have enemies? Nah, Masonry is not a public institution. Nah, unless you're doing like a charitable community type of endeavor or something that's cool, then maybe say, oh, yeah, we're going to be out here. Let's publish it. But other than that, trust me, don't do that. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea because your enemies know exactly where you're at. At the time you're going to be there. That's not smart. So I'll swerve from that. But in short, at least as far as I mentioned with the so-called Moorish right, it's a this is not I'm not being malicious or anything like that. The Moorish right is a fake Masonic degree system. It just is. They are. There's nothing Masonic about them. They're just trying to promote Moorish science temple teachings under the guise of Freemasonry, and Masonry is not about that. Or any organization you see in general, like if you see a lodge that tries to tell you that Freemasonry teaches Islam, that's the real secret of Masonry is it teaches Islam. That's a fake Masonic organization because it doesn't. Even with the Shriner degree, the Shrine, which is a side degree that came out in the late 1800s. There was no Shrine degree of Freemasonry prior to the 1870s. So Masonry doesn't teach Islam as its real secret or anything like that. Nor you have fake Masons too, like in the old days, like Dr. Oliver. You could research him. Dr. Oliver, I want to say his name was George Oliver. He wrote a lot of books. He was from England though. Another fake Mason. His doctrine was that Freemasonry teaches Christianity. That's what the secret of Masonry is. That's fake Masonry too. Masonry doesn't promote any particular religion. We're free thinkers. We don't. This is why with let's say the Grand Orient of France, Blue Majestic Masons, we recognize them absolutely as being Freemasons. Now, allegedly, let me not even say allegedly, it's the truth. They, the Grand Orient of France has members who are self-proclaimed atheists, and a lot of Masons who don't study, they jump to the conclusion automatically and say that, oh yeah, because they have atheists who are members, their organization is not Masonic, and those Masons are not Masons. But do you sit and ask those Masons, what do they mean by calling themselves atheists? And I can tell you because I build with a lot of brothers from that organization. A lot of cats in this day and time who call themselves atheists, what they mean is one thing. And that one thing is not that they don't acknowledge a creative principle or a supreme architect or a creative spirit behind the universe. What they mean by saying they're atheists 9 out of 10 times is that they don't believe in the God of the Bible in the literal sense, and they don't believe in the God of the Quran in the literal sense. That's what they mean, I'm telling you. But don't take my word for it. Sit there and talk to these people first. Talk to them and ask them what they mean when they say they're an atheist. And that's what they mean. 9 out of 10 times, they mean that the word atheist, you have the prefix a and then you have theist. The prefix a means non or negation, and the suffix. Let me not say the suffix. The word after the prefix a, theist, refers to theos, which is the Greek word for God in the New Testament. So they're saying that, listen, man, we don't believe in the God of the Bible, man. The Judeo-Christian God, which is also the God of Islam. In a literal sense is what I'm telling you, brothers who are watching. They're saying we don't believe in the way that the creator of the universe is depicted literally in the Bible and in the Quran, and in other scriptures that depict God as being anthropomorphic, meaning, having the qualities of a human. They feel that, hell no, I don't believe in that God of your Bible. I don't believe in him. I don't believe in that, man. I don't believe there's this God who created the worlds. Let me give you an example so you can understand better. And I'm not really defending or going. I am kind of defending my brothers that are Grand Orient Masons in a way, and sisters, because they're co-Masonic organizations too. Let's say you're reading the Bible from an enlightened perspective, just as a neutral person seeking the truth of your existence, right? Let's say you read the Bible. Boom, you open up the Holy Bible. You start off with the book of Genesis, chapter 1. Now, as you read Genesis, hold on. I have a Bible right here. Just so you could get an example, man, I just want to bring understanding to the people. All right, so let's say you open up Genesis. I'll just open up Genesis right now in the Bible. And it says, all right, okay. You'll read Genesis chapter 1. You get to you're in chapter 1 of the book of Genesis in the Bible. You get to verse 9 of chapter 1, and it says, God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. Verse 10, and God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Verse 11, and God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. Verse 12, and the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Verse 13, and the evening and the morning were the third day, right? Meaning the third day of creation. What I just said there tells you that in the third day of creation, according to the book of Genesis, God created plant life on the third day of creation. So now we're going to go on to the next verse, which is verse 14, which starts talking about the fourth day of creation. So here we just read that in the third day of creation, plant life was created by God. Trees, herbs, vegetables, so on and so forth. So let's continue. All right. Verse 14, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. That was just verse 15. Now we're going to verse 16. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. Verse 17, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. Verse 18, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. Verse 19, and the evening and the morning were the fourth day. So those verses I just read now tells you about the fourth day of creation. And according to Genesis chapter 1, the verses I just read, the Bible in a literal sense says that God created the sun, the moon, and the stars on the fourth day of creation. Right? And prior to that, in the verses I read before that, it says that in chapter 1, that God created the trees, the herbs, the vegetables, plant life on the third day of creation. So if you take a person that's intelligent, intellectual, who's reading the Bible off of face value, when he reads the Bible or she reads the Bible and reads what I just read and says, hold on, man. Chapter 1 of the book of Genesis tells me that God created plant life, vegetation, the trees, the herbs, vegetables on the third day of creation. And then God created the sun, the moon, the stars, the celestial bodies that give light on the fourth day of creation. What you expect them to say? They're smart enough to know that, hell no, that's not correct. How could there be trees, plant life, and vegetation on the so-called third day before there is celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the star, light? How could you have plant life and vegetation before you have the sun, the moon, and the stars in creation? If you believe that literally, you're a fool. So a lot of individuals who call themselves atheists, that's why they call themselves atheists. What they mean is that, bro, that doesn't mean they don't acknowledge a supreme architect or they don't acknowledge a creative intelligence behind creation. It means that, bro, I don't acknowledge the God of this literally. This God that you promote literally in the Bible, that you hear about in church, that you hear about in the synagogue, that you hear about in the mosque. When you read things like that, God created the heavens and the earths in 6 days. First of all, they're reading that literally too. Like what? God created the world in 6 days. Remember, they taking that literally when they read it. Like what? 6 periods of 24 hours? Get the fuck out of here. That don't even make sense. First of all. And then secondly, this God created plants and trees and grass before he created the sun, moon, and stars. That's not even logical. How you know it's not logical? How do you know from common basic sense that that is not logical? Take a plant. I don't know if you keep plants in your house or flowers or roses or whatever. Take your plants, or buy a plant from a florist. Take that plant, put it in your closet with no light, right? Put a coat over it, put a shirt over it, put whatever over it so it's in total darkness with no sunlight getting to it. Close it. Or take a seed, a plant seed, put it in a box with soil. Leave the seed in the box inside your closet with no sunlight coming into your closet in total darkness and see if that plant grows. See if the plant that's already grown is going to survive without sunlight. It's going to die. So anybody who has a little bit of intelligence would read that in Genesis and say, hell no. If I'm in church and they telling me that God created the plants, the trees, and the grass on the third day of creation, and then on the fourth day, he made the sun, get the fuck out of here. That doesn't make sense. There's no way there's plant life and grass and all that before there's a sun and stars. Hell no. But these fools who are dogmatic, they'll sit there and be like, you're questioning God. Nobody's questioning God. They're questioning the fools who wrote the book, man. Who wrote the book? Who wrote the Bible? A man. Or men and women. Humans. You understand what I'm saying? So the point is that with Grand Orient Masons, the Grand Orient of France, is to do the work of Freemasonry. They set certain rules in place as they started to grow. And one of those rules was that a lot of the thinkers that are coming into our lodges are free thinkers and they're bright, they're intelligent, and we're not gonna present Masonry to them as if it's a Christian institution. So if they want to come into the lodge and they don't want to look at the Bible with veneration, we not stopping them from that. So therefore, that's how we're representing Masonry, as a search for light, for truth. The square and the compass are essential. The Bible as a symbol to them is not essential. Like for Blue Majestic Masons, we have the Bible in all of our lodges, but none of our members are Christian in the sense of a dogmatic Christian in Blue Majestic Masonry. None. But when we do your petition, if you tell us in Blue Majestic Masonry that you believe Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, we're not gonna pass your petition on for consideration. We're gonna blackball you from the beginning because to us you're not mentally fit. And you're not mentally fit because you're still stuck in the darkness of religion. So Grand Orient Masonry is like that, except they just go to that, to that extreme in a sense where they're like, nah, you, we not lying on, like this is the age of enlightenment we're in. We not sitting there we're not gonna lie to the masses and tell them that, the Bible in a literal sense is Masonry. So a lot of cats that are atheists, that's what they mean. All they mean is that, but talk to them. If you don't talk to them and you just judging them, but you never hold a conversation with them, you don't know nothing. Talk to them. And most so-called atheists will tell you to read why they call themselves atheists and what they mean by the term. And 9 out of 10 times what they mean is that, listen, I don't believe in a personal God. And Freemasonry universally does not require that you believe in a personal God. All Masonry requires is that you acknowledge a creative principle or creative spirit, whatever term you want to use, in the universe. And every human, for the most part, acknowledges that, unless they're a madman or they're or they're bugged out. But the majority of so-called atheists simply don't believe. They call themselves atheists because they do not believe in the literal presentation of the character God as presented in the Bible of the Quran. And you can't blame them for that because they're more rational than the cats you'll see in church or the mosque. They really are. You have cats who believe, meaning people, pardon me, that believe that the virgin birth of Jesus Christ is literal. And I understand that because I believed that too when I was unenlightened. I did believe at one time, like, yeah, there was a guy named Jesus Christ, or Jesus, he was born of a virgin birth and God miraculously impregnated his mother. I believed that when I was a fool. Of course I did at one time, growing up how I grew up. But through Masonry, I questioned those things. I started learning about nature. I started studying the book of nature, which is what the Bible ultimately symbolizes. And when I questioned those things and I started learning, I was like, nah, that's mythological. It's symbolic. There's no evidence in nature for that. There's no evidence in nature for so-called miracles. None, nothing. There's not. If those things were happening in the old days, they would be happening now. They would be. You would see people splitting the Red Sea. You would see virgin births today. You don't see them today because they've never happened. It's not in accordance with the plan of nature. It's not. It doesn't exist. It's against law. So those things are mythological. They're symbolic. So when you have lodges that let people in who believe those things literally, those are fake Masonic lodges because those lodges don't have the enlightenment. They're not enlightened. And that's real, no disrespect, but they're not real Masonic lodges. For that, have a church. That's what people go to church for. Church and the mosque is for the unenlightened. That's for your common profane people who are spiritually dead. They need that teaching. That's good for them. You know what I mean? It helps them to to have a moral code, a moral sense that that they need to be decent people. You teach them basic things. Don't rob, don't steal, respect your neighbors. That's all. Honor your mother, honor your father if they've raised you, and so on and so forth. That's good for them. And that's that. They belong where they're at. Naturally, they belong where they're at. You don't have to hate them because they're dumb, deaf, and blind. They are where they are. They belong there. When they're ready, boom, the light bulb will go off. The light will spark in their mind, and then they'll start to question for themselves. And then they'll come into Freemasonry. They'll knock on the door of their own free will and accord. So, that's how it goes. So I say that as far as the Grand Orient of France. When you speak to a lot of those brothers who are members of that affiliation, Grand Orient Masonry, they'll blow your mind. They'll blow your mind. They just sit back in the cut, like I mentioned in my last episode. They sit back in the cut and they do the work of Freemasonry and they chill. You know what I'm saying? It's real like that though. But anyway, let me read some of the comments. All right. Um, oh yeah, I see my brother Tony Hawkins. Peace, bro. Um, I was studying Kemet at 4 for myself. If you want, take it honestly as I remember it. You are the temple. I'm just trying to go back so I can just read some of the comments for the time being. Sometimes I skip the comments and stuff like that. Man, a lot of comments here. All right, but just let me read it. Okay. Let's see. Man. All right, cool. See where I left off. Brother Derek Bennett says, I've been reading up on Moorish Masonry. There are adept chambers and the 360 degrees in a book I recently came across. Yeah, in Moorish Science Temple of America, they have an adept chamber, but that's their religion. That's apart from Masonry. At Derek Bennett, F.C. Johnson says, at Derek Bennett, where can one get those books? F.C. Johnson says, I was asking a brother about literature on Moorish Freemasonry. I don't know about Moorish Freemasonry, kid. Suspect, seriously, there is no Moorish Freemasonry. There's just Freemasonry. But you do have Moorish Science Temple. So you study their literature. Brother Joseph says, I'm an inspector general with many more degrees and not even technically a Mason proper, which I realize is weird. Of course it is, because how could you be an inspector general if you're not technically a Mason? You have to be, man. Who did I say that to recently? I don't know. I don't remember, but in my last episode, there's no freelance Masons, man. Like when you read Brother Manly P. Hall and he tells you, which rest in peace, much love to Brother Manly P. Hall. When he says you don't have to be a member of a lodge to be a Mason, he's talking about spiritually, esoterically. The Masonic craft teaches us the same thing. That doesn't mean that gives you the green light to go out and say I'm a Freemason. Doesn't mean that. It means that you could study Masonic philosophy and see the truth or the light of Freemasonry within yourself as an individual. It doesn't mean go out there and say you're a Mason. It doesn't mean that at all. So yeah, you don't claim none of the degrees of Freemasonry if you're not affiliated. But then you must realize Theosophy and other traditions have none or many more degrees. Okay, cool, valid. Derek Bennett says, He's also right of Memphis, Mizram. I will post his name. Okay, all right. Joseph says, I love you guys, but once again, I'm drunk and love the Moors for speaking out anyway. Okay, cool. FC Johnson says, thank you. Brooklyn Locke says, most Scottish lodges have 4 degrees. Okay, I said that. He said the same thing again. Good to go. Solo says, you are right about the politics. So-called mainstream didn't want to acknowledge any Mason. Okay, we went through that already. Joseph says, Brooklyn, do you have your own mark? So that's for them. That's their private conversation. Joseph says, I like the plagiarism that makes religion, to be honest. Okay. Derek Bennett says, glad for the insight. I've been researching them. Brooklyn Locke says, Haru. Joseph says, at best, they'll take you to the Palestinian route and Hiram Abiff to Ishmael to Nimrod to Narmer, and it isn't wrong, but doesn't teach much without further study. I agree with that. While the one says, remember your new name, of course, which is caution. Derek Bennett says, what's your outlook on the Theosophical Society? It's cool. A lot of the members of the Theosophical Society in old days were pioneers in what is now known as co-masonry or Masonic lodges for men and women. And they're different organizations of co-masons. They're different ones. So the Theosophical Society is a good subject of study. I would recommend that you study them. Joseph says Shriners even still focus on temple architecture and the inner and outer, strangely, which is also found in Hinduism. Cool. Good to go solo says, how long, okay, how long have you been a Mason and at what age did you first develop an interest in Kemet and Masonry? So for good to go solo, if you're asking me, Brother Majesty Monson, as the host of the show, how long I've been a Mason. I've been a Mason now for over 15 years. So soon, I'll be coming up soon. Not soon as in tomorrow or next year, but soon I'll be coming, into the 20-year mark. Soon, not tomorrow, not next year, not even a year after that. But so far, I've been a Freemason for over 15 years in the craft. Then Good to Go Solo says, at what age did you first develop an interest in Kemet and Masonry? I developed an interest in Freemasonry personally, I would say around the age of maybe 16. I would have to really think deeply to tell you the exact age, but at 16, I developed an interest. I had a friend, who was a street partner of mine in the streets, basically running the streets. And his grandfather, was an old black Mason. And I used to see him come through. He used to be wearing like a straw hat and shit. You know how them old cats. You had certain old cats who had class. You feel me? So he was one of them old cats who had class. He'd be wearing a straw hat and shit, slack shoes, shirts. He was just always classy. Masonic ring. And here and there he'll throw out certain references to us, not in an arrogant way, but he'll just throw out points of light, and we'll sit there and think about the shit, and we'll converse with him like, and I could give you examples in another episode or something, but he would just ask us certain questions, man, that would have us think. And prior to me meeting him, like I knew his daughter, the old man I'm talking about, and his daughter, she had like a little keepsake box where she had like all of the notices, like old notices, not all of them, but she had a lot of like old notices from her dad, the old man I'm talking about, my homeboy's grandfather at the time. She'll have like a lot of old notices, pendants, charms, couple of rings and stuff like that. Like, oh, my dad gave this to me in the event of his demise, if he does die one day. I have all of this. I'm his daughter, so he passed these certain things on to me. Um, and prior to me meeting him, um, I remember my stepfather, he had a book when I was a kid growing up, that I saw in my house. It was called The New World Order by Ralph Epperson, I want to say, which is it's an anti-Masonic book. But I remember seeing that book with the Great Seal of the United States of America, you know, the pyramid and the all-seeing eye. And I scanned through some of the book, and you know, the author talks about how Masons run the world, and he gives a lot of quotes, and it kind of it sparked an interest in me, but I was too young to really have the support, you know, of individuals to um, help in my growth and study. So, but it's still planted the seed. So it was always in the back of my mind, like, oh shit, the Masons, what's that? It was new to me at the time as a kid. This when I'm like 14, as far as like, not even, but I'm bugging. This is way before I'm 14 years old, as far as like my stepdad having that book, The New World Order. Um, that was when I was um, about 10 or 11 years old when I first saw the book, The New World Order. Pardon me. So my stepdad had the book, and I'm like, and here now we have reference made to the Masons, and I'm like, the fuck is that? The Masons? Word? That's an organization that runs the world. And then once you know about something, you start seeing Masons. Like you're blind to it. Like you have a bunch of citizens now who you can ask them about Masons, and they'll be like, what's a Mason? Trust me, I'm telling you. They won't know what a Mason is. Some do, but trust me, there's a lot that don't. And it was like that when I was a kid. I'm like, what the fuck is that? A Mason? But I saw that book, and I knew how to read when I was 10 or 11 years old. So I read through some of it, and I'm like, what the fuck? Oh shit, you have a secret society that runs the world, you know what I'm saying? And they all over the place, and they got their symbol and money and stuff like that. But I really didn't have anybody to really like build with, you know, at 10 or 11 years old. You know what I'm saying? Most of your peers are doing the same thing I was doing, playing video games and shit like that. But anyway, later on, when I was about 16 or so, you know, I met my friends, the one I mentioned, his grandfather. Like I said, he used to always have that straw hat shit on, or fedora, you know, some classy slacks, shoes, Masonic ring, and he was just smooth, you know what I'm saying, for old man, and he carried himself in that way. And then I started seeing more Masons, particularly black Masons, because I'm from the urban area. I'm more from a black community for the most part. And I'll see these old cats. I don't by old, don't think I mean fucking dudes with gray beards with a cane and nothing. I just mean older cats, like 40, 50 at the time. And so I'm like, oh shit, these are those Mason cats I be hearing about. And they had a certain style with themselves. And they'll, you know, throw some things out there. And I'm like, later on, I started seeing bozos. When I became a Mason, later on, I started seeing the fucking fake Masons, the social club bozos. And a lot of that started with mainstream Masonry starting a begging drive to get members, putting shit in the newspapers to get people to join them. And they started tracking all type of fucking weirdos and bozos to keep their membership going. But I'm talking about before that. So that intrigued me. So that led me to want to know about masonry. That's when I petitioned for myself. And when I first went to petition, I was about, I'll say 17, going on 18. Real talk. I'm like, oh yeah. But I came across a Masonic temple, and I'm like, oh shit, yeah. Because I was studying it at the time. You know what I'm saying? I was studying it from that young age on, but just not so thoroughly. But I studied it enough to be like, let me see what this is about, man. There's something about it is attracting me. Something about it is very magnetic. So I saw a Masonic temple, which was a mainstream Masonic temple at the time. I was 17 going on 18, so I walked inside. I'm like that. Like, I'm going to walk in your building. I'm not a scary, by scary, that's just the hood term to mean scared. Not a scared dude. So I walk in and I see a couple of brothers there. So I'm like, yo, I want a petition. So they're like, okay. They're like, yo, how old are you? Like, oh, I'm 17, about to be 18. So they're like, nah. They're like, you too young, man. Come back. Come back when you're 21. This is years ago I'm talking about. And in the mainstream, you had to be 21 years old. In New York, I'm talking about, New York State. So he's like, nah, come back when you're 21. You just can't petition at this time. You know what I'm saying? Like, sorry about that, man. Like, we appreciate, your desire, but we have an age restriction. So I was like, fuck. So after that, I'm 17 going on 18. So long story short, I spoke to a brother Mason I knew who happened to be a Freemason under the Black Ancient Free and Accepted Mason affiliation, John G. Jones affiliation. And we were talking about Masonry, and he was like, but they told you gotta be 21. Like, nah, you gotta be 18. I don't know the difference at the time, you know what I'm saying? But in the John G. Jones lineage, at least in the jurisdiction that I joined, you had to be at least 18 years old to join. So boom, I was up in there, you know what I'm saying? And you see that with the John G. Jones lineage, they have buildings the same way as you see with mainstream Masons, with squares and compasses on the building. That's how I got down with John G. Jones when I first started. I was like, oh, all I gotta be is 18. All right. So the brother we didn't have a long drawn out conversation as far as the age thing, but he was just like, basically like, who told you that? 18 years old is good. And I didn't question it too much. Like, oh shit, these other guys in that temple lied to me. I didn't take it that they lied to me. I just took it that, okay, that's probably what they do, you know what I'm saying, in their building, whatever. So that's how I got there. And from there, when I did become initiated, a lot of the shit that I read in the New World Order by Ralph Epperson, I was like, this fucking dude's a liar, man. The fuck is I'm I'm the way I'm talking now is like how I'm thinking as the young man. I'm like, this fucking dude lie, man. Fuck is he talking about? Masons worship the devil. Like, this is lit to me at the time. I'm like, oh yeah, it's about God. You feel me? The worship of God. And it's dope. The rudimentary lessons before I even got into the esoteric lessons were just fucking profound to me as an 18-year-old young man. It was. I didn't have too many friends I could talk to about masonry at the time as far as my peers. But it was profound to me, man. To me, it resonated with me. I'm like, yo, I was impressed. I was highly impressed by the ritual, everything. I was highly impressed. And I look back upon that book, The New World Order, like, I could see why Masons are strong. I don't know why this fucking author is saying that Masons are worshippers of the devil and none of that. But at that time, this is how I'm thinking. But I'm like, nah, I see why Masonry is fucking solid, why it's profound. Because it just had that impact upon me, for me. It just did. So anyway, that's how I first, developed an interest in Masonry and started on a Masonic path. And as I progressed, and I pretty much gravitated towards those brothers. And as I, became more involved, I started to see the social club shit. As I started to interact with more members, even in my lodge at the time, not the lodge I'm a member of now, but I'm saying back then, and that shit started to turn me off. And I'm like, hold on, man, these cats. They got degrees and everything, but they don't know nothing about masonry. Like, they don't want to talk about masonry. It seems that they don't even really like masonry. But they're members, they want help and this and that, but you can't build with them. So the spark never left me. You know what I'm saying? The fire never left me. But that shit had me questioning these organizations. And the same thing with mainstream masonry wasn't no different, because I would meet mainstream masons and build with them and be like, what the fuck? I'm like, yo, hell no. Like, something is not connecting here. Why don't these cats really know the craft? Like, and I would be studying from that age on, 18 up. When I joined, I studied before that, not masonry in particular, like in depth. But from 18 on, I was always reading, always. The like Morals and Dogma of Brother Albert Pike. I read that book. I didn't understand it my first time reading it. It's over 1,800 pages. Excuse me, it's over 800 pages. But I read that book, and so I was able to read different books, from different Masons of different countries and different jurisdictions. So that kept me going. I'm like, yeah, something with masonry. So my study in masonry was always deep, always deep. So that's pretty much how it all started, really. And then, subsequently I learned that I learned what masonry is really about. And obviously that led me into the study of Kemet, ancient Egypt, and the ancient mysteries in general. So pardon me for that long story, but the brother asked me. Um, so something, okay. All right, Frank from the West, literal. John G. Jones in the building. How can you have a day before there are the celestial? Yeah, see, Brooklyn Locks gets the same point. He went even further than what I said in the literal sense. He said, how can you have a day before there are the celestial bodies that divide day from night? The stars, sun, and moon were created in the fourth day. He's right. The point is, those are the questions you ask when you move out of the literal into the symbolic or the esoteric. Good point, Brooklyn Locks. Thank you for saying that, man. Thousand Locks says, can you explain what it means, or why do you think it was written in that order? Brooklyn Locks says a day is the sum of divided time of light and darkness. All right. Okay, brother Terrell Gosberry says, LOL, Sky Daddy. Brooklyn Locke says, that's why I couldn't join Knight Templar Order. You have to profess a belief in Christ and so forth. What do you think about that? That's a good point, Brooklyn Locke. Like brother J.D. Buck says in Mystic Masonry, which is a classic book. You could get it in PDF format on the internet. Just type in on Google, Mystic Masonry by J.D. Buck, PDF. Fire book, bro. One of my favorite books in Masonry. And he talks about that. He was a mainstream Mason. And he started seeing the nonsense, but he became enlightened and he started writing and teaching true Masonry. And he says in there, he's like, yo, these esoteric, or not esoteric, these exoteric, profane Masonic orders. Like, you can't tell a man he got to be a Christian to be a Mason. What the hell is wrong with y'all? And he admonished those cats who practice, the Knight Templar in that format for that same reason. Like, hell no, man. Masonry is deeper than that. Y'all have that, the exoteric doctrine, but not the esoteric. Um, okay. Good to go says, thanks for answering. When you first obtained an interest in Masons, you were very young to have a strong interest. And that is impressive. When you were in your teens, did you ever develop an opinion on 5%ers? And to brother Good to Go Solo, Hell yeah, man. The as far as the 5 percenters were very instrumental in my involvement in masonry because I had, several friends whom were 5 percenters. Even from that same age in which I really started studying more thoroughly, like the age of 13. I was studying from a kid, man, literally from like the fundamental year, the foundational years of 6, 7, 8. And that's because I went to a performing arts school for like a couple of years. And I had certain teachers and adults around me who were heavy, like they heavy in knowledge, where they would pass you books, not if, like highly advanced books, but just books to get your mind going. You know what I'm saying? To get you into reading and stuff like that. So later on, like I'll say around the age of 13 or 14, I started to know about the 5 percenters. And in school, I say I was in about the 8th grade, age of 13. Like the gang shit started to become popular in New York City, particularly the Bloods in New York City. Like, I would presume in California, like I have California connections. Of course, I've been to California also, but I would presume that overall in California, they mostly Crips or whatever. But in New York City, around the time I was 13, more or less, we're talking about like 1999, like around that year, like 1999. The blood shit, the blood gang, the Bloods, that was shit started taking off in New York. So a lot of the youth started really looking like cats around my age in the end of the 90s started really to look towards wanting to become Bloods. You know what I'm saying? Or to start to want to become gang members. And even myself, when I was young, I got into that, into the gang lifestyle. That's what I got into, the gang shit. As a young cat, that's what it was in the neighborhood. We got into gang banging. You know what I'm saying? Because you see what appears to be the camaraderie, you know, the handshakes and all of these rights, these primitive rights that we see in masonry, but that gangs use. Cause it's kind of all universal, you know what I'm saying? Realistically, man. Masons, this is why I say somebody asked me, not asked me, but somebody made the statement recently about masonry, like, oh, a lot of people feel that urban, meaning inner city Freemasons, practice Freemasonry like a gang. And if you're from the inner city, you don't let that phase you. It's like, and your point is what? Yeah, Masonry is very much like a gang. It's just more sophisticated. The truth. Just like the police. Police are like a gang. We don't mean to offend police when we say that. We just telling you what it is. You know, the police department in any city is a gang, man. They are. Now, does that mean they do crimes per se? I can't say as far as police, but I could say as far as the essential principle is concerned, the same principles are at hand. You know, gangs have handshakes. Not all gangs have handshakes, but generally, they have modes of recognition, ways to recognize each other. They have their own language. They have a hierarchy. They have the same thing that any group would have. If you study the science of groups and group phenomena in sociology, that's all. It's just a lot of people don't like gangs because nobody wants to be the sitting duck. Nobody wants to be powerless. You know what I'm saying? So if they're around gangs that exert power and in turn strip those individuals of their power, they grow to hate gangs. You know what I'm saying? Just as certain people grow to hate the police, certain people grow to hate Freemasonry. And then you have other individuals who are more, you know, students of life, and they understand the dynamics of group phenomena in sociology. So they're able to get along, you know? But anyway, so at that time, like I said, when in the late junior high school years, I started to hear about the five percenters. We in New York City and Brooklyn, and I'm from Brooklyn. They're different boroughs. But going to school in Brooklyn, in my borough, everybody called them God bodies. They didn't say five percenter or Nation of Gods and Earths. They would just be like, you know about the God bodies? And then you started to learn more, like, oh, the rapper Nas, you know what I'm saying? He's a God body. The Wu-Tang Clan, they God bodies. That's 5% of Nation of Gods and Earths. And shit, there's a host of rap artists who are so-called God bodies, 5%ers. So as a kid, when I started hearing about them, I'm like, damn, that must be some elite shit. You know what I'm saying? God bodies. Herb Leonard says European Masons or the fake Masons. I agree with that in a lot of ways. You know, not saying that all European Masons are fake Masons, but I'll say that mainstream Masonry, which promotes a white supremacist or your European supremacist agenda, are fake Masons. Absolutely, I agree with that. Anyway, so you know, that's how I heard about the five percenters, the God bodies, and then I started meeting some, and I'm like, oh shit, I'll listen to their lessons, because in Brooklyn they weren't deep. You know what I'm saying? Brooklyn was more, at that time I'm talking about the late 90s, more gang involved. But you would meet certain five percenters or members of the Nation of Gods and Earths, and in other boroughs like Queens, Staten Island, and then you hear their lessons and you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of dope. Real talk. It's kind of dope because they had knowledge, but they also had the street persona. You know what I mean? And this is why the old five percenters, or the members of the Nation of Gods and Earths from the older generations, they were successful because they knew how to speak to the streets. So they made it cool. Pardon me. Look at like the rapper Nas. When he came out, I'm not talking about today, he's like 50s, becoming a senior citizen soon. But look at when he was younger. How you think something like that appeals to a guy like that who started off in his 20s? You know what I'm saying? With waves in his head, wearing specs, wearing Clark's, Clark shoes, gold chains. How you think that knowledge appealed to these street cats that are in the streets in the ghetto? Because it's all about how you present the knowledge. And it's the same thing with Masonry. This is why, mainstream Masonry and even Prince Hall Masonry overall doesn't speak to the youth. They don't want to. A lot of the youth don't want to be Masons. Like Blue Majestic Masons, they want to, they want to get down because we're more street oriented. We're in the streets with it at the same time, with the square and the compass, and we're not running wild, but the youth can hear us and relate to us. You know what I mean? So that makes them want to be involved and get down. And a lot of the, most of the social club Masons, and especially old cats that claim to be Mason, they're very far off, like they're very disremoved from what goes on in the streets. They don't know and they can't relate. So who are you gonna reach? The old cats? No, to move a movement, you gotta reach the youth. And with the Nation of Gods and Earths, when they started off, they were a break off of the Nation of Islam, for those who are not familiar. And the reason that they were able to grow like wildfire was because their founder, who was a member of the Nation of Islam, when he left the temple, he went right to the streets and started teaching the youth. And the youth soaked it up, man. They related to him. He's in the streets teaching them. Yeah, he's teaching. This is a grown man, but he's teaching young cats that are 11 years old, 12 years old, teaching them student enrollment, Lost Found Muslim lesson 1 and 2. And you'll be shocked, man. Just like when I was a kid. This is years later, but when I was a kid, and I'm chilling with the members of the Nation of Gods and Earths, the 5%ers, and I would be pretty much baffled in the mind. Like, damn, these cats know this shit. Cause I know a little bit about the NOI. I'm like, these cats know all the lessons of the NOI by heart. Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1, Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, English lesson number C1, student enrollment. They know that shit by heart, verbatim, the whole lesson off the top of the head. You'd be like, oh shit, the NOI don't even know it like that. But anyway, though, so yeah, so that the NOI had a lot to do with the excuse me, not the NOI, the Nation of God, and the NOI too, but the Nation of Gods and Earths had a lot to do, man, and me staying on the path and seeking the light and the knowledge. The only reason I gravitated towards Masonry is because for me, a lot of that element of secrecy, a lot of the stuff I was reading about Masons just kind of showed me like, I think there's something a little bit deeper. And I'm not saying that Freemasons are superior to God bodies and not like that. Not at all. You have a lot of God bodies who are very enlightened. It's just, for me, Masonry really appealed to me, man. That whole structure, the lessons, the mystique, those type of things. It just did. And I've remained a loyal Freemason to this day, despite opposition from whoever. There was a couple more questions. I've been on it for a minute, man. All right. Let me see. All right, so I answered that. The 120s in the Nation of Gods and Earths reminds me of the Blue Book. And the 120 is the basically the lessons of the Nation of Gods and Earths. That's short for 120 degrees, meaning the knowledge of the Nation of Gods and Earths. And most of the guys in NYC turned blood on Rikers Island, which is true, definitely. I won't say most of them, but yeah, hell yeah, the original Bloods in New York City were pretty much that in jail, guard bodies. You want me to tell you how it comes to the gangs? I won't say that's in the secrets. Okay. Herb Leonard says, okay, I read that already. The 5%. Herb Leonard says the 5% Nation rappers were the best rappers I ever heard. I wish New York would go back to that style. Yeah, man, Herb Leonard is right in a sense of lyricism. Like the 5% of rappers of the old days, man. Like in the late 80s, the 90s. I'm not even from the 80s, but I'm just saying I've heard the old music. That intellect, that knowledge, it gives you a way with words. And if the 5%ers, man, the meaning in this case, the Nation of Gods and Earths, the rappers coming out of that, they had that wordplay. They studied, and it made the music so dope. You know what I'm saying? Just how they spit lyrics, rhyme words, and stuff like that. Nowadays, we got mumble rap. Everybody knows that. Herb Leonard says, how did Aleister Crowley get initiated? He says infiltrated into Masonry. I want to say Aleister Crowley got infiltrated in Masonry. He joined Masonry through some type of bodies outside of mainstream Masonry, and that doesn't mean that those bodies were not Masonic. I've never met Aleister Crowley. I have read a lot of his works, and I will say from a lot of the things I've read that he's written, it leads me to believe that he definitely possessed the light. And by that, I don't mean knowledge of ritual and catechism. I mean deep insight in the mind. The only thing I've read about Aleister Crowley that has me like, and I don't know if it's true, it's just what I've read. I don't know that. But I have read what he's actually published, and a lot of what he has written himself resonates with me to show me that he possessed spiritual insight. The only thing in just, studying him that I've read about him that doesn't resonate with me is that allegedly, he was a bisexual, meaning, he was into having sexual relations with men and women, and that doesn't resonate with me. Like in Blue Majestic Masonry, like one of the parts of our obligation, this is not speaking for mainstream Masonry or Prince Hall. I don't know what Prince Hall Mason Prince Hall Masonry's rule is in regards to sexual orientation. I don't know. Even though I know a lot about them, I have several brothers who are affiliated with that, so they would have to tell you better than I could tell you. But I do know that mainstream Masonry, it depends. They have different rules and different grand lodges. But I could say that with Blue Majestic Masonry, part of our obligation, meaning our actual oaths in the 3 degrees, is that you cannot be a homosexual. Like if you were to petition us for membership and we knew that, we're gonna ask you, like, are you a homosexual or bisexual? To us, it's the same. Homosexual and a bisexual is the same to us for all practical purposes. And if you are that, you get blackballed. Whether you're a man or a woman, you cannot be gay or bisexual and be a member of a Blue Majestic Masonic Lodge. No, you can't. Sorry about it, but you just can't. And there's a reason for that. So with Aleister Crowley, that's one of the things, hearing about him, I don't know if it's true. I'm just saying what I've heard about him and things they said. So I can't say he was. I don't know him, never met him. You know what I'm saying? But that's the only thing that gets attached to his legacy that has me like the gay thing. You feel me? No good. All right, good to go solo. I'm in my 50s, so I'm old school. When you came up where the God body still having ciphers, I'm a Bronx Harlem dude. Yeah, hell yeah, they was having ciphers. You know what I mean? Definitely. It just wasn't as strong when I was a kid because the blood shit started coming into play. The blood game, you know what I'm saying? But I started to meet 5%ers subsequently because they were still around. You know what I'm saying? So when you meet those who are that, I'm pretty sure at one time they were in vogue how the Bloods were. Just as I remember being really, really young, like maybe 7 or 8 years old, and I remember a fucking time where the Zulu Nation was like a fucking gang when I was like 7 or 8 years old. I remember that. I remember that, you know what I'm saying? And they had the same kind of colors like the Bloods later on. They used to wear red shit, green shit, black shit. And I used to, what the fuck, the Zulu Nation? Because I'm Hispanic, you know what I mean? I'm Puerto Rican. So I remember the fucking early 90s in New York City. Like you had Latin Kings and Nietas and all that. And you're like, oh, you see them in the streets, Latin Kings, Nietas, like, oh shit. Because the Spanish gangs were really more like predominant, you know what I'm saying, in New York City, real talk. But then you would see the Zulus and I'm like, oh shit, you got the Zulu Nation. So I'm pretty sure there was one time where the God bodies was moving like the way you would see those gangs in the early 90s when I was a kid. You would see the Nation of Gods and Earths like that too. But as I got older, like I said, yeah, when I started meeting them and I started getting in the loop and knowing them, yeah, they were still doing their things. I mean, doing their thing, and they would sit there and school you. Like I had certain homeboys who were Nation of Gods and Earth when I was a young kid, 13, 14 years old, in the gang when I was a kid. and I'll build with them. Some of them were older, and they'll be like, "Yo, what's the population of the original man in the wilderness in North America?" I'll be like, "What the fuck you talking about?" They'll be like, "What's the population of the original man in the wilderness in North America?" And I listen, like, go ahead, tell me, break it down, and boom, and they'll put me on to this type of knowledge, and I'll be like, okay. So the point is, it all plants a seed. It all plants a seed, and it stays with you and it remains with you. And this is why it's important that we teach the youth, especially Freemasons. Don't be like Social Club Masonry, where I mentioned on Brother Tony Hawkins' show in a live chat maybe a couple of days ago. There are a lot of members of my lodge today because we do our due diligence. We investigate you. And there are a lot of members of my lodge today, a lot, whose father